Most self-help advice tells you the same thing. Think positive. Believe in yourself. You can do anything if you just want it enough. Author Mark Manson looked at that entire tradition and basically said, "This is backwards, and it's making people miserable." His book became one of the best-selling self-help books of the decade by arguing something almost nobody else was willing to say out loud. The desire for a more positive experience is itself a negative experience, and the acceptance of a negative experience is itself a positive one. In other words, the constant chase for happiness is often the exact thing standing between you and actually feeling okay. Let's break down why this counterintuitive approach struck such a nerve and what it actually means for how you live. The first idea is what the book calls the feedback loop from hell. Imagine you're anxious about something. Normal enough. But then you start feeling anxious about being anxious because you think you shouldn't be anxious in the first place. Now you're in a spiral, stacking negative emotions about your negative emotions, and it snowballs into something far worse than the original problem. The same thing happens with anger, sadness, even feeling like a failure. The book argues that a lot of modern unhappiness doesn't come from having negative experiences. Negative experiences are unavoidable. It comes from constantly judging yourself for having them. This connects to the second big idea. Not everything deserves your energy. We live in a culture that constantly tells us to want more, care about more, chase more. Social media in particular manufactures outrage and desire around things that have zero actual impact on our lives. But here's the problem. Caring about something requires energy, and you only have so much of it in a day. If you spread that energy across everything, from a stranger's opinion online to a minor inconvenience at the grocery store, you have nothing left for the handful of things that actually matter. The book's argument isn't that you should stop caring about things. It's that you need to be brutally selective about what earns your care in the first place, because giving a damn about everything means, functionally, giving a damn about nothing. Honestly, I think this is the part of the book that resonates most with people because most of us were never taught this. We were taught to want things, to chase goals, to always be striving for more, but almost nobody explicitly teaches you how to choose what's actually worth the fight. The third idea challenges something almost everyone assumes, that self-esteem, or feeling good about yourself, is the thing you should be optimizing for. The book pushes back hard on this. Chasing the feeling of being exceptional, of always needing to be right, successful, or special, actually makes people more fragile, not less. If your entire identity is built on being the best at something, every small failure becomes a threat to who you are as a person. The healthier alternative the book proposes is what it calls the backwards law. The more you obsess over feeling good all the time, the less secure and content you actually become, while people who accept pain, uncertainty, and their own ordinary flaws tend to be the ones who end up genuinely at peace. Then comes one of the most practical shifts in the whole book: the difference between fault and responsibility. These sound like the same thing, but the book draws a sharp line between them. Fault is about the past. Who caused this problem? Responsibility is about the present. Who has to deal with it now, regardless of who caused it? A lot of people get stuck for years because they're focused entirely on who's at fault for their situation, their upbringing, a bad break, someone else's mistake, without ever shifting into the much more useful question of what they're actually going to do about it. You can be a victim of something completely unfair and still be the only person capable of moving your own life forward from here. There's also a section on failure that flips the usual self-help message on its head. Most advice tells you failure is something to avoid or push through on the way to success. This book argues failure is the actual mechanism of growth, not an obstacle blocking it. It introduces something called the do something principle. Motivation doesn't usually come before action, waiting for you to feel ready. It comes after. You take a small action, even a bad one, and the motivation to continue actually builds from there. Waiting to feel inspired before doing anything difficult is, according to the book, one of the most common ways people stay stuck for years. Finally, the book lands on the idea of values. Not values in the vague, inspirational poster sense, but as a practical filtering system. Good values, the kind that lead to a genuinely fulfilling life, tend to be things you can control and that produce long-term benefit: honesty, curiosity, humility, accepting uncertainty. Bad values tend to be things that depend entirely on external validation or luck, being liked by everyone, being rich purely for the status, always being right. The book's argument is that most unhappiness in life traces back not to bad circumstances, but to measuring your life against the wrong values in the first place. So, what's the actual takeaway? This isn't a book about giving up or not caring about anything. It's about radically narrowing your focus down to the few things that genuinely deserve your energy, your identity, and your emotional investment, and being at peace with everything else falling away. Ironically, that narrower focus tends to produce a much richer life than trying to care about everything at once ever could. If this breakdown resonated with you, the book goes even deeper into the idea of certainty being the enemy of growth, and why the people who seem the most sure of themselves are often the ones who've stopped learning entirely. Subscribe for more book breakdowns like this one, and let me know in the comments which idea hit hardest for you.